in the United States.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster and fellow Toastmasters. I'm actually giving a speech this evening, so this will be good practice for my engagement tonight. The Wall Street Journal in 2011 called last year the year of school choice. And that was a phrase that was bound to circulate among members of groups such as the Goldwater Institute and others that monitor school choice around the country. And it was also something that was bound to give opponents of education reform, like teachers' unions, heartburn. We have been watching for years as states have developed laws that allow students to leave their assigned public schools. Typically, you're assigned your public school by your zip code. But many states have adopted laws now where you can attend a variety of schools. And being here in Arizona, I know many of you can probably commiserate with that because you know we have hundreds of charter schools in Arizona. We have tax credit scholarships that allow students to attend private schools of choice. And we have an open enrollment law that is very powerful for this state because students can attend virtually any public school in this state subject to space. But what happened in 2011 was unique. And what happened was a number of very important and far-reaching laws were passed in states around the country. Indiana, for example, passed a voucher law that allows students to use public dollars to attend a private school, except the critical feature of this law was how inclusive it was. Typically, when voucher laws are passed, they tend to be for small populations, say in a district or in a city or among low-income families. But Indiana's law was very inclusive, and even students in middle-class families could participate in this program, which made thousands upon thousands of students eligible. Now, this was important because school choice is going through it's experiencing not a growth spurt necessarily, but growing pains. And it's sort of searching for an identity as a movement. And that is because typically when school choice laws, such as the one in Indiana, or the one you've heard me talk about here from this podium before, the Education Savings Account program here in Arizona, as these programs are passed, usually the first thing that happens is they're sued. Someone tries to sue them to shut them down. And that is what happened in 2011. So let me run down a quick list of what passed and what was sued. I've already mentioned Indiana's law, and that was sued almost immediately after it passed. Arizona's Education Savings Account law, which is distinct from vouchers because it allows parents to have a debit card, much like a health savings account, that I know many of you may be familiar with, and they can purchase a variety of services. That was sued shortly after it was passed. Both of these, which were sued by teachers' unions and the School Board Association in the case of Arizona. Now, in Colorado, an interesting event occurred because a district school board, created a voucher program for one district in Colorado. And that is unique because typically when voucher programs are passed into law, it's done by lawmakers. So it was different for a district board to pass something like that into law. That was sued immediately after it was passed and shut down. A ruling the judge made a ruling shortly after the case was filed, and so the program was closed. A couple of laws passed that were not sued, and these were really the outliers. In North Carolina, a tax credit law was passed that allows families to write off all of their expenses on private school tuition. It was only for parents of special needs students, and the limit was $6,000. Now that's important because if you can imagine looking for a private school for your child, typically that's the ballpark for what the tuition costs would be, and you would be able to receive a tax credit for all of those expenses. A couple of other important developments included the parent trigger law in California. Now that law actually passed at the end of 2009, early 2010, but most of the activity surrounding that movement happened in 2011. Now, the parent trigger law allows parents to petition to close a failing school. And this is something that's never happened before in the United States that a law would be so drastic and call for such a drastic reform. So parents at a school in McKinley, California, which is in the Compton School District, which is one of the lowest performing school districts in the country, they petitioned to close their school down. That also went to court. It was sued and proceeded through various court systems in Los Angeles before eventually the judge ruled that parents could not take over that school. And they ruled that because parents didn't put the date on every page of their petition, that the petition was invalid. So you can see what sort of politics were involved with that. So 2011 was a critical year for a movement that is really still trying to make a serious, long-lasting impact on schools in the United States. You can actually read more about this movement in the latest issue of Education Next. There's an article that's called School Choice Marches Forward that has more details about this movement. So thank you very much.